You can please take your seat.
Let's get started. May I please have everyone's attention? Before the meeting begins, we ask that everyone at this time please silence your cell phones. The Fort Bend ISD Board of Trustees meeting is open meeting for the public to observe the board meeting conducting district business. Therefore, patrons may only address the board during the designated audience items section on the agenda. If you have printed material you want to give to the board members, you must provide them to the board secretary, Gary Rozier, or to me, and I will provide them to the board. We also ask that the board members in the audience be respectful of others and remain quiet during the meeting so that everyone is able to hear the proceedings. Thank you.
Thank you, officer. The time is 5:59 p.m. and this meeting is hereby called to order. We have the presence of a quorum and the meeting has been duly called and notice of the meeting has been posted for the time and manner required by law. Thank you all for being here this evening. First up is our first information item to conduct the public hearing on the district's 2018-19 first rating.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is always an exciting report because Fort Bend ISD does exceptionally well with the first rating. So I'm going to turn it over to our CFO, Brian Gwynn, to begin the report.
Thank you, Dr. Dupree, and I'm going to bat it over to Kelly Schlacks, our Director of Financial Services. And just to point out, this is the first item, and it is about first, so we'll get that kicked off just to make sure everyone catches the irony of that. All right, thank you. Go ahead, Kelly.
Good evening, Board President, board members, and Dr. Dupree. I'm pleased to present the district's School First report this evening. Okay, there we go. Okay, that's fine. Okay. Tonight we'll go over an overview of FIRST and the district's performance and future changes to the FIRST and some other required disclosures. FIRST stands for Financial Integrity Rating System of Texas, and it was developed by the Texas Education Agency to measure the financial performance of school districts. And the rating covers 15 indicators that were established by the Commissioner of Education. The first rating we'll be going over tonight is the 18-19 rating year, which is reported on 17-18 financial data. So the rating lags a year behind and is not based on the 18-19 financial data that was included in the annual financial report that the board approved just last month. That financial data approved last month will be in next year's first rating. So the rating matrix shows that a district that receives 90 to 100 points would achieve a superior rating or the highest rating possible. The first 5 indicators are yes/no questions and are considered critical. If a question's answered no, the district would not pass FIRST. Fort Bend received positive responses or yes responses for all 5 critical indicators, including filing the annual financial report timely, for receiving an unmodified opinion on the audit report, for being compliant with all debt payments and debt agreements, making timely payments to the Texas retirement system, to the IRS, and other governmental agencies, and having an unrestricted net asset balance as of June 30th, 18 greater than 0 when you back out the pension liability and other post-employment benefit liabilities on the balance sheet. And we kind of discussed those liabilities last month during the audit report. The next 10 indicators have a maximum point value of 10 points. And of the 5 indicators shown on this slide, the district received the maximum 10 points on 3 of those indicators, including cash on hand and investments sufficient to cover operating expenses. General fund revenues exceeded general fund expenditures, and debt service coverage ratio was sufficient to meet debt service. The district received 4 points for the current assets to current liability ratio. A district might receive a higher score for this indicator if they had issued bonds and those bond proceeds were reflected in cash or investments at year end and they hadn't spent those proceeds towards bond expenditure payments. That has a tendency to increase their ratio. However, at Fort Bend, we utilize the commercial paper program to fund the cash flow of the bond program. And so at June 30th, 18, we didn't have any bond proceeds in our capital projects fund from bond issuance. And we had 16 million of commercial paper outstanding in current liabilities. And that has a tendency to lower that current ratio. But that program has saved taxpayers of the district over $10 million of interest since its inception in the debt service fund. And it's also allowed the district to lower the tax rate during fiscal year 18 by 2 pennies. So the innovative and cost-saving programs, such as that CP program, are not always reflective in the first rating, and in this case actually decreased our indicator on that score, receiving 4 points. Our long-term liabilities to total assets, we received 6 points for that indicator. The district received a maximum point for all 5 financial competency indicators, including a low administrative ratio, accurate reporting of 630 financial data to TEA that matched the audit report, 630 financials being free of material noncompliance with grants and laws, and the district was not under an adjusted repayment schedule due to an overallocation of the Foundation School Program, which is the main program that funds Texas school districts. The district received a total score of 90 points, which falls in the superior rating, or the highest rating achievable for FIRST. There are some future changes with FIRST that will be effective in the 2021 rating year, which will use 19-20 financial data, so that's the current year we're in. Those changes including changing the number of indicators from 15 to 20, and the point value system will change. Of those new ratings, some of those include comparing budgeted revenues to actual revenues and ensuring that there's less than a 10% variance, and comparing actual average daily attendance to the biennial pupil projection that's submitted to TEA by the district. And one future indicator that TEA has already had to change is the funding lag of property values based on the current formula. With the passage of HB 3 and no longer having a funding lag in that, they've now already changed that indicator to require that the administration just talk to the board about property values when we're adopting the budget. Two other indicators, including comparing the debt per $100 of assessed value, ensuring that's sufficient, and ensuring that the district has posted all required financial information on the district's website. Those new indicators are items that we've pretty much already been reviewing and analyzing during the budget process and our debt issuance process, so it really won't require anything new for us. However, we have been analyzing those indicators and ensuring that we are receiving the maximum points allowable, and we'll continue to do that until they're actually required to be reported in the first rating in that 2021 year. In addition to those new indicators, there's going to be some ceiling factors on the scores, which will provide for a maximum score a district can achieve if the indicator's not met, and I've listed some of those here. And again, we don't anticipate any issues with any of those ceiling factors. First requires reporting any gifts and business transaction that the board or the superintendent would have had with the district during that fiscal year of 17-18, and we don't have any to report. And it also requires the district to report the superintendent's contract, and that is available online for everyone to review. In addition, it also requires that we report reimbursements made to the superintendent and to board members during 17-18. And I'm reporting those on this slide here. And I guess with that, that is really the first, all there is with FIRST this year, and I would be glad to take any questions.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Mr. Rosenthal, do you have a question?
Yes. So, thank you for explaining why we got dinged there. I think we had this conversation last year or the year before.
Right.
And So I want everybody to understand that the state of Texas is actually penalizing us because we're not issuing debt before we need to, and we're actually saving tens of millions of dollars for our taxpayers. And have anybody, has Steve or in the past talked to any of our legislators and explained this issue so that maybe they can take this up and get it fixed? I mean, it's not that big a deal. We got bigger fish to fry, okay? But still, it's just, somebody's just not thinking.
Right, and there is a commentary period typically when they issue these different criteria for districts to comment on. That is something we have actively commented on in the past and will continue to do so. What they've done typically in some cases is given us a letter, a waiver, if you will, and they always caveat that waiver with, but in the future TEA may change its mind in terms of issuing this waiver, but it is something that we do periodically comment on when they provide that opportunity, but at this point they haven't made any indication that they're interested in changing that.
Well, maybe we need to do a little advocacy for that too. But again, we have bigger fish to fry. But so could you also explain, maybe better explain why we got a 6 on the next one? Was that basically the same kind of issue, or?
Yes, well, when we start to have an active bond program and the debt goes up a little bit compared to total assets, but as we start to really pay off that debt, I would imagine that indicator will change.
Okay, so basically any school district, when they initially issue, because I would think that the reverse would happen, since we're not issuing all that debt right up front, and we're issuing paper, right, to pay those short-term debts off,
Right.
So I would think those would be kind of opposite. So people who are issuing lots of debt right up front, they'd get dinged on number 8.
Yes, they could be dinged. And we're kind of just dinged because we've, that 14 bond program, we've got that pretty much mostly issued. And so we're a little over $1 billion in debt compared to the total assets, so.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. Mr. Rice?
Thank you, Mr. Burdine, and thank you, Ms. Schlacks. I was going to follow up on a comment that Mr. Rosenthal made, and that is we're being dinged on that one category of the measure of current assets to current liabilities because we're issuing commercial paper, which has saved over $10 million to our taxpayers. Maybe we should try to get that published in the Houston Chronicle. Number 2, don't we also, if we weren't using commercial paper and we're issuing bonds, don't we have to be careful to not issue more bonds than we can spend within a certain time frame?
Yes,
Or we'll be guilty of negative arbitrage?
that's correct. And then it could be a problem with the IRS.
So the commercial paper really helps us avoid that.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. And then I noticed discussing one of the future things is to discuss property values, the funding lag within 120 days of adopting the budget. And so now we've gone, apparently there used to be a whole comptroller's property tax division whose very existence and job was to certify property tax values 12 months in arrears. And now that role has been transferred to the TEA, which has never done it before, because theoretically they're focused on student education. And now they're going to do it in real time. So that's going to be a pretty neat trick, I think. And I would say we've always discussed property values when we're planning our budget, always.
Yeah.
Every year, our CFO meets with the chief appraiser here to find out what the property values, what they think the property values are going to do. Are we going to have an increase, a decrease, or are they flat? And we have to use that because that's how we plan our budget. Because like the state of Texas, we cannot pass a budget that's not balanced. Now, Congress can, but we cannot. So in the 17 years since this program has been in existence, Do you know, Dr. Dupree, how many times we've received a superior rating?
I don't, but my guess is it's been every year in Fort Bend.
That's correct.
Yeah. So for the last 17 years, and I just want our friends and neighbors at home watching on television, that we've achieved a superior rating. Every year, this rating system has been in existence. This rating system, which is devised by the TEA, has been in existence. And not only that, we have a very robust internal audit program in which we audit various departments, and we know that we're running a pretty tight ship, and at the same time we have very good student academic achievement to show for it. And I think that's something that we should be very proud about. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. This is great news, and we are very proud as a board to have another superior rating. As Mr. Rice said, for the public out there, this is a big deal. It's really, really good news. So thanks again for all your hard work. Our finance team doesn't happen on accident. So keep it up, and we look forward to another superior rating next year.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes, sir. Do we have any public who would like to make a comment on our first rating? Hearing none, we will now convene in closed session under the Texas Open Meetings Act, Chapter 551, and those sections listed in the agenda, and for the purpose of private consultation with the board's attorney on any or all subject matters authorized by law. We are now convened in closed session.